Hello, sir. How are you doing? Good to see you. Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah, that pain. Yeah. Wow. Okay, wow. Good luck with that.
Sorry, it was acting.
You put it on the
I don't know.
laptop?
I don't know, but I couldn't get anything open, and so I didn't know whose was what or saved where. So if you need to put that back in.
I was hoping it since I was the only one up here today.
Yeah, no, it's because Ansley's got to present the barbecue blues, which has a big video.
Good evening, everyone. Let me call to order this meeting of the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency. The time is 3:31, and we will see if there are any comments from the public. Do we have any cards from the public for the CRA meeting?
Sorry, I don't have any cards right now.
Okay, thank you very much. See if the board members had any comments. President Warren,
No, Mayor.
Commissioner Ward. Okay, Commissioner Fox,
No comments, thank you.
Commissioner Peduzzi.
No comment, thank you.
Okay, very good. We do have one item on consent calendar, item 6.1. Any questions or comments on consent? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we accept the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Been moved and second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. All right, a couple of presentations. Item 7.1, presentation of the BBQ Brews and Blues event. Mr. Rugg.
Thank you, Mayor. Very excited to share some great information related to the Barbecue Blues and Brews event that occurred at the beginning of July. This is an annual event where we share all kinds of information related to the progress that has occurred in the historic Northwest. We give status of projects, we collect some information from the public, as well as actually build some small business leads. So Ansley Lacey, who I'm also pleased to introduce, is one of the latest additions to the CRA team. She is one of the marketing coordinators. She has put together a presentation that sort of shows some of the data that highlights our outreach efforts, some survey information that was collected, and then also a treat, hopefully it works at the end, a video that was put together. And also I want to give a little bit of a shout out to the producer of that video. Greg Dillard is with us today from Grape Seeker. So we are pretty proud of it. It's got a lot of, highlights a lot of the great progress that we've made. So Mayor, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Ansley Lacey, Marketing Coordinator.
Very good.
Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Ansley, like Chris said. And we will get started on the Barbecue Brews and Blues Festival. So we are working on making this event bigger and better each year. So we're just going to give you a full recap because it was a great event. We had a lot of activities at this event. There was a great turnout, so we'll go through that information in a moment. We had live entertainment, inflatables for children, interactive games, the barbecue contest, which ended up being a trophy that actually had a pig on it, so that was really exciting. But we had a lot of information. We did Sunset Lounge tours, and we really invited the community out to enjoy what they can experience there in the Heart and Soul Park. So to go over our marketing and advertisement efforts, there was a lot of marketing. So if you didn't see it, we'll make sure that we do better for next year. But just to kind of recap over that, we had a lot of information on the city website. We did hear that that was a really good way for people to learn more information. Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. All right. We had the Eventbrite page set up, which we had over 2,000 clicks on that. A lot of radio ads, which we'll discuss in a moment. Yard signs, which seemed to be very effective. There were 21 of those dispersed throughout the historic Northwest District. Banners, postcards were mailed out to everyone around the area. A lot of Facebook promo, and the city newsletter from the mayor's newsletter that was sent over to 42,000 people, and we had over 115 clicks each time that was sent out. And then the CRA newsletter that was submitted, we had that sent over to almost 3,000 contacts, about 2,600 contacts, with about 47 clicks directly to the event page. To give you an idea of what that promo looked like, we have a few images here on the screen for you, and we really wanted to be consistent with our branding, so every time that you see that Barbecue Brews and Blues, you saw information, and then you were able to be routed to the CRA to learn more information. The sponsorship packets, as you can see, those were dispersed by our Historic Northwest Business Alliance. They were key players in the strategy behind getting this out to the community and business owners. With that, they were able to raise $4,750, and then they were able to get the in-kind radio ads up to $50,000 worth. So it was on the radio a lot. And then to go further into the radio features, you have a lot of spots that you can see here on 97.9 and 102.3. 102.3 did set up a tent, had a lot of interactive games with the kids, so it's really, really exciting. All right, so the idea from the last meeting last year when you were talking about the Barbecue Brews and Blues Festival is how can we have more people come to the next one? So 1,000 people were estimated to attend the 2022 event, and we were able to double that to 2,000 participants this year. So just want to celebrate that for the CRA and the entire community and the city of West Palm Beach. So the marketing efforts were really creative for this. So the idea is when we have this many people, I think Commissioner Christy Fox mentioned this in the last meeting, we had this many people attending this event in the community. How are we telling them about the projects? How do they know more information? How can they get more involved? So we had Megatron visuals with all of the projects going on, and they had a lot of information to direct them to our booth. So we had an 8x10 printed map of the district that was there. We had people come and interact with us. These gentlemen here were showing us where they lived. I think they were showing me where their mother went to church, and it was a really cool interactive experience to get to know some of the community members and then just really hear what their input was for other projects. So that was an exciting time at the booth. They were also able to get different project sheets, to learn more about those projects in the area. Those were dispersed all throughout the park where you could learn more information. And then we had our project manager, Gina Baker, on site giving Sunset Lounge tours. There were 2 private tours that sold out almost immediately that were open to the public, but we had 50 people total on those. So they got to experience it. As you can see, they really enjoyed that. So here were some of the project cut sheets so that if someone asked, I want to know more about this project, I want to invest in this project, we gave them an actual handout that had everyone's contact information, a status on where the project was, and more information where they could find out more. And then back to that community outreach. When we have this many people here, what are we doing to continue those marketing efforts? We were able to collect 161 new newsletter subscribers, and 90% of them live, work, or play in the area. The other 10% didn't check that box, so we're not really sure. 72 surveys were collected by some of our volunteers, and some really cool stats on that was that we had 84% of those tell us they wanted more restaurants, so that's going to be a focus area. We had 23% of them tell us we visit the Historic Northwest at least once a week or more, so how do we get them in more? And then we had 26 individuals out of 72 tell us that they would like to open a new business in this area. So we'll be following up with them. All right, so this is why I'm nervous, so that we can make sure that this event video will work for you, because it is incredible to give you a recap. Is it downloaded? Yeah. Yes. So, if you will work with me for just a moment. And this video is by Gregory, if you will stand in the crowd. Gregory is with Grape Seeker. He has done an incredible job on this video, and so we are just so thankful to have him create this for us, and thank you to Mayor Keith James for being the
You got
MC
your
on
clap before we even see the video, man.
this. That's right. All right, so let's make sure this works.
Hello, my name is Keith James. I am the mayor of the great city of West Palm Beach. I'm excited to be here with you today to ignite the heart and soul of West Palm Beach. The highly anticipated Barbecue Blues and Brews is back, bringing you an incredible fusion of flavors and music that will light up our community. Set in Heart and Soul Park, this event unites our city in a day of pure enjoyment, celebrating the vibrant spirit of the historic Northwest. Prepare to discover new businesses, savor the finest barbecue our city has to offer, and enjoy the great music. Turn it up, please. Year after year, Barbecue Blues and Brews keeps getting better, welcoming more restaurants, more new residents and vendors, while embracing the charm of the existing community that has made the historic Northwest one of our city's most cherished neighborhoods.
Barbecue Blues and Brews is one of my favorite events in the historic Northwest because it brings so many people together to have great food and good music and just celebrate with their family and friends and to kick off the holiday weekend.
The business community supported Barbecue Blues and Brews this year, and it's important because it allows us the opportunity to kind of share ourselves, show ourselves. The marketing dollars that would be necessary to put on such an event, to put ourselves in the front of so many people, faces, and other businesses and residents of the community, it's just marketing dollars that small businesses don't have. So the partnership is absolutely necessary, and it's a wonderful thing.
This event literally joins everybody together with unity and love. It brings them out of their comfort zone to enjoy themselves as a family. So we're bringing families out, we're bringing kids out for them to enjoy themselves. And this is also showing everybody around in and out of our city, our neighborhood, as far as what we're doing to our neighborhood, because it's on the rise.
This event can rival any large event that our city has ever seen. We're just getting started, and the energy behind it is growing. I've seen it year after year, and it surpasses anything that I could have imagined a decade ago. And I'm very happy to be here to be a part of the experience.
If you've never been here, you don't realize how much fun this is. It's great for the food, it's great for the drinks, but overall, I think
Also just the sense of family.
family, yeah.
It's benefits to the businesses too. I mean, the family atmosphere is just one that's unmatched. We're able to call on a fellow business owner and, hey, we need this, or we need you to come out. We have so many volunteers, so many people who came out, and so that's really a testament of what this neighborhood is all about.
I'm in love with the park. I'm absolutely in love with the park. If you drive by here throughout any time of the day, you're going to see kids in the park mainly. They're out there playing football, they're playing with the instruments, there's history around it, the artistic work. I absolutely love the park. And I feel like the park is just another staple that's going to be here forever.
I think it gives us all a chance to see each other, get to feel like a real community around people who have started businesses here and such.
First off, I like to congratulate all the businesses who've been here, the ones who came here, and the people who support them. I was just saying I'm thankful for them, and they couldn't be in a better place this time. And I think it's the greatest place in the city. That's why we call it the heart and soul.
Vision is really set by the community, and that vision comes out in just staying connected with the community and communicating that to the leaders of the city. And that comes back through initiatives and planning and efforts that really are a manifestation of what the community has told us they want.
As a leader of the Historic Northwest neighborhood in action, this event is a catalyst for us community members to have a stake, to say, hey, we're here, because ultimately the residents are the true treasures.
Well, good food always brings people together, number one. But this in particular, I love the diversity.
I think what they're doing is, one, preserving those spaces in the neighborhood that are of historic value. We just finished a historic preservation plan and was very thorough, that involved the community, and community meaning residents and business owners and those who grew up in this neighborhood back in the day. They're working to preserve those historic buildings and identify historic landmarks.
It's a great opportunity for the community to come together in a way that highlights the historic Northwest District.
Hi, I'm Christy Fox. I'm a West Palm Beach City Commissioner for District 3, which includes the historic Northwest.
My name is Shalonda Warren. I'm the president of the City of West Palm Beach Commission, and I represent District 2.
My name is Kimberly Weston Mayhew. I am co-owner of Camille's Flowers and Gifts and Wild Rose Wine and Daiquiri Bar, located here in the historic Northwest.
My name is Music Williams, and I live in Roosevelt Estates.
Hi, my name is Crystal Phillips, and I'm a resident here in the historic Northwest.
Hi, we're Lamont and Paula Humber, owners of P&L Corporate Solutions.
I am Tawana Teal. I am a resident of the historic Northwest, and I am also a business owner.
Brian Boysaw of Boysaw Law. I'm at 501 North Rosemary Avenue, located in the historic Northwest District.
I am Dr. Alicia Nguyen, applied cultural anthropologist and historic Northwest resident.
My name is Christopher Rue. I am the executive director of the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency.
My name is Darren Studstill. I am the owner and operator of Cityside Suites.
Join us in this celebration as Barbecue Blues and Brews adds yet another reason why West Palm Beach is the place to be all year round. Let's come together to make lasting memories and celebrate the true essence of our city.
Now we're able to give you the applause. Gregory, thank you for the video. And thank you for your patience with getting that up. I was very nervous that I wouldn't be able to play that incredible video for you all. But with that, I wanted to close with thanking you for letting us have this wonderful event. We had a great response from the community. I wanted to thank each of you for attending. That was really exciting to have you there. And then the entire CRA team that was able to come together and stay and work until the very end. So we have an incredible crew, and we're looking forward to planning for next year. So we've already got a few meetings down for that. So we hope to have you then. And any questions on the event?
Well, let me just say congratulations, Chris, to you, the team. The numbers speak for themselves. You doubled the attendance over last year, so that's fantastic. And I'm sure the best is yet to come. I hearken back to 5, 6, 7 years ago, that whole area and the transformation that has taken place. I mean, Heart and Soul Park didn't exist. It was just a vacant piece of land. The Sunset was in just horrible condition. So new life and transformation has been brought to that part of our city, and it's so exciting. So again, kudos to the CRA staff, the team, the community for coming out. Great job, and I know we'll have even more exciting and fun events there in the future.
Yes, Winter in Paradise will be December 1st, so mark your calendars.
All right, very good, very good. Board members, any comments? President Warren?
I just wanted to say great job.
Okay, well, great. Thank you again. Thank you.
you.
Greg, great job with the video, man. Yeah, two rounds of applause. Look at that. Okay, item 7.2, CRA staff presentation of proposed budgets for fiscal year 2024 for the Downtown City Center CRA and the Northwood Pleasant City CRA. Mr. Rugg, you want to tee this up?
Thank you, Mayor. Before Fiscal Manager Disa Campbell gets into the presentation, I just wanted to say that each year this is kind of the culmination of feedback and input that we've gotten over the last 12 months. It's always interesting that as soon as you close out one budget cycle, you start working on the one for the following year, and that just comes through and those ongoing outreach, community efforts, dialogue with you, board members. So this budget really reflects all of that input, as well as departments and speaking with them. So we're pretty excited about this budget for this coming year. And following this, this presentation and leading into September, we'll begin building a work plan around this budget, barring that you all are supportive of this. And from there, yeah, just excited and eager to get to work. We have shifted some dollars around based on the community feedback, so you'll see dollars placed in areas that have some new initiatives. So we're also excited to talk about those. But without further ado, Mayor, I would like to turn it over to Deesa Campbell, Fiscal Manager.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, Mayor, board members. As Chris mentioned, we have two presentations today, one for the Downtown City Center CRA and one for the Northwood Pleasant City CRA. So I'm going to start with the larger budget for the Downtown City Center CRA. This is a map of our district that each of you would be familiar with. Just some highlights from the budget. So we start with our revenues, and we want to note that revenues have increased. The projected revenues have increased $8.1 million, or 16%, over the prior year numbers. And where does that funding come from? We have $15.8 million in carry-forward dollars that were allotted to projects, but we just haven't gotten to them as yet, or were included in our reserves for the year. And then in Fund 356, we still have a carry-forward balance of $14.3 million in that fund. Our current year revenues, TIF revenues total $58 million plus, with 35 coming from the city, $20 million coming from the county, and $3.1 million in the DDA district. We also anticipate some property sales for the year, and this $373,000 represents the two remaining Sticks buildings, which we should have a notice to dispose coming up in the next few weeks, and we anticipate that the close on those sales will come in the new fiscal year. Estimated investment earnings on CRA cash invested is $800,000, and then finally lease payments on CRA properties. Those would be primarily the few remaining tenants we have in 314 Clematis, and a few residential properties that we have around in the downtown city center space. Then we look at how we use those funds. So if we add up the project funding, the innovative policing, and the DDA work plan, we have 77% of our funding going towards achieving the CRA goals in the downtown city center district. $53.7 million in project funding, $11.7 million in debt service, tax increment financing, and that is for the existing TIF agreements that we have, primarily the CDD district. Innovative policing, $3.9 million we've allocated. That includes activities in the entertainment district primarily, and also allocations for technology. $6.6 million goes to the DDA because we provide a match for them, so that is the estimate that we will hand over to the DDA for to support their initiatives. We estimate a reserve for future projects of $4.3 million. That is divided into Fund 105, balance of $3.1 million, and we still have a balance of $1.2 million in Fund 356. And then finally, our operating expenses for the year are anticipated at just around $3.7 million, and that includes all general fund allocations for CRA, support of the CRA activities. It includes our allocations for engineering services, and it also includes funding for a new position, if approved by the board, for security director for the city and CRA. So this is just to highlight CRA goals and how the initiatives that will affect the achievement of these goals go in the coming year. Enhancing the infrastructure and streetscape improvements, business opportunities and incentives, neighborhood safety and accessibility, enhancing the waterfront and city commons area, continued preservation of the historical fabric, particularly in the historic Northwest District, affordable housing and empowering home ownership opportunities, community engagement and activation to communicate our project goals, support for private development projects, and that's particularly through PPPs, hopefully, and then finally the support of art and public spaces. So this will tell us a little bit how this is how we are using our funds. So, and this will refer back to the initial breakdown. Most of the money is going into direct brick and mortar projects in the project funding. And then coming in after that would be debt service on the CRA bonds. So where are we using our funds? So 56% of our allocations this year will go to the historic Northwest District, followed by 11% in both the Nora and the downtown core area. 14% will go to district-wide initiatives and 7% into the Clear Lake District. So let's take a deeper look into what we're doing in the historic Northwest. As you can see, most of that funding is for brick and mortar projects. Sunset Lounge, that represents the FF&E that still has to be completed in the building. Mickens Moore and 610 Douglas, they are both historical preservation projects, which we hope will be turned around as investment and home ownership opportunities for people who either currently live in the historic Northwest or would like to move there. 703 3rd Street, 719 SAP, those are also historic preservation initiatives. 800 Tamron, so business development opportunity. 1031 North SAP, that will also be used for either affordable housing or home ownership. And then we have 901 Tamron, 311 North SAP, 822 North Tamron, and the current and Rosemary Block project, which are initiatives that we started in the current year. These were funding, these amounts represent funding previously allocated to those projects, but not yet encumbered. So depending on how we finish out those projects, some of those funds may drop back into our reserves. In terms of infrastructure improvements, we've allocated $6 million to the design and development of the Rosemary Streetscape from 3rd all the way to 10th Avenue. Tamron Avenue, that $500,000 represents allocated funding not yet encumbered. And then the Douglas Street Lighting Project, which is also a continuation of a current project. The next item, the WPB CAT, that is a carry forward item from the from Fund 356. I'm sure we may have some further discussion on that number going forward. But right now, that's a placeholder. $1.39 million for community activation, for communications, marketing, activations, and engagement in the historic Northwest. Now, what makes up that number? Most of that, a lot of that is money is allocated for the openings of the Sunset Lounge and the Sticks and other projects in the area. Activation in Heart and Soul Park. This year, we reallocated $200,000 from the waterfront to hopefully work with them to move some of those activities over to Heart and Soul so we get more activation in that area. And holiday lighting, which we will all see when Winter in Paradise comes. Business development, grants and incentives, that represents an allocation for the CRA support for the operator of the Sunset Lounge if it is required. Business development initiatives in the area that would be available for businesses that may want to take advantage of that. And grants to residents for paint, plant, and pave improvements to residential properties in the neighborhood. We've allocated $1.1 million for property acquisitions in the area and related services related to those acquisitions. If, again, any acquisitions will go into a pool of real estate that we hope to turn around as either some form of business development or affordable housing opportunities. And then finally, neighborhood stabilization, which includes general cleanliness, cleaning of illegal dumping, private security services in the area, property maintenance for currently owned assets of the CRA, and a density study that we hope will give us some insight as to how we develop those affordable housing opportunities. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Next, we go to the downtown core. What we have here, we have $5.8 million allocated to the downtown core, 1.2 for infrastructure projects, the repairs and maintenance of the streets, Clematis streetscape, the installation of a playground at the waterfront, and a related public art project that will go along with the park. We have funding for the trolley stopgap operations, $1.2 million, redevelopment incentives, and redevelopment and economic incentives. That relates to current job creation agreements that we have with various entities throughout the city, as well as an allocation for economic development for initiatives coming through the economic development department. 314 Clematis, that is carry forward money. We haven't allocated any new funding to 314 Clematis, and depending on what happens with that building as we move forward into the fiscal year, that may also drop to our bottom line. Public art support, and finally, allocations for consulting in the area. That includes WPB Go, the Banyan Garage, development of the Banyan Garage, and the CRA portion of the marketing contract that will encompass the CRA, the city, and perhaps the Downtown Development Agency. The next district is Nora, Brownswood Park and Providencia Park. Redevelopment initiatives in the area include the $5 million that we are committed to allocate for the streetscape, and $1 million for as development incentives for new businesses moving into the area. And then we have $50,000 allocated for a traffic analysis. We were supposed to get to that this fiscal year, but we have not, so that is a carry forward. Clear Lake and Okeechobee, we've allocated $3 million for property acquisitions. That will enable us to see the Fern Street crossing come to life. And then we have $500,000 left over in Fund 356 for the Tamarind Streetscape, Okeechobee to Banyan, the initial part of the project. And I believe that that is just for the intersection at Banyan. That'll be, when all the work is finished, that money will go to improve the intersection. And then Okeechobee Corridor, we've allocated $300,000 for design and a design study for improvements for the entryway into the city. And that'll be from 95 to Flagler. And then,
Wait, just to clarify, not from I-95 to Flagler.
sorry.
It's really Tamarind
Australia.
Avenue to Flagler Drive.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
And then finally, our district-wide initiatives, the Banyan Streetscape, $4.5 million represents carry forward in Fund 356, and we've added $2 million in the current year, and that would be for the portion from Quadrille out to Flagler. CRA Property Services, most of that is for district-wide landscaping initiatives, but also included there are, we always have some project that comes up that we haven't contemplated or was not presented at the time of budgeting that requires some kind of consulting or design, so that some of that is a placeholder in the event that we need to use it for those kinds of services. CRA property insurance for the year, we've been advised that we should expect a 30% increase over the prior year. We have a $250,000 allocation for public works, which remains flat against last year. The seawall plan grant match, which again is a carry forward from the current fiscal year, as well as the allocation for the mayor's education grant. And then finally, we mentioned $6.6 million allocated to the Downtown Development Authority, and Mr. Clemente will speak more about that in his presentation. So that brings us to the end of the budget allocations for Fund 105. So do we want to entertain questions
Yes,
before we
yes.
go into 107, or?
Let's
Okay.
talk about this for a minute. Go back to slide 3, I believe it was. Three. Okay, and this may just be a messaging. The second highlighted bullet point, we say 77% of the available funding was allocated to achieving CRA goals in the district. Where was the other 23% going?
So the other 23 represents the debt service, the tax increment financing, reserves, and the operating expenses.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Any questions, comments, commissioners? Commissioner Ward?
I know that the city owns a number of properties in the historic Northwest, and I'm just curious, given,
Can you talk to the mic?
sorry, I know that we own quite a few properties in the historic Northwest, and I guess, given, when's our limit of, we're allocating another $1 million, when do we stop acquiring and hoping that the private sector engages and buys the properties that we're not buying? When does that time come? Are we close?
So generally, because of just the cost of land right now, I would say that the $1.1 million is a pare down from where we were last year. Last year, we were, I believe, over $2 million. 1.5?
1.5.
1.5. So, and the $1 million that we've set aside for land acquisition is really targeted around specific lots that we think would, when assembled by the private sector, would actually act as some type of catalytic project in those areas. So it's not something that it's a fund that's set aside for specific lands that we've already identified that we think will help our redevelopment goals. Hopefully we don't have to use it, but it's there if we need it. And I would say as of right now, there's about two or three properties that we've targeted. But I would agree with you, Commissioner. We do have a good, healthy chunk of land. That's why we've allocated money for the planning side of things to start looking at density on mainly how we could provide more housing in that neighborhood in those vacant lot areas. So we are beginning to sort of walk back from the acquisition now that we're heading into a planning situation.
Commissioner Fox.
Thank you so much. I first want to say thank you to the whole CRA team for all the community engagement that you've done around this. We've had at least the last 2 community CRA meetings in the historic Northwest have been geared towards talking about the budget. I know that we also went to one of the neighborhood meetings for the Northwest neighborhood in residence and action. So thank you so much. I think that it was great to have the opportunity to hear from a lot of the neighbors. You can't please everyone, but I think they were very happy with where we're going next year. I know that I'm going to start a little bit earlier talking to them about some of the neighborhood improvements they'd like to see, more lighting and ADA sidewalks and things like that. But I think you've done an excellent job communicating with the residents and getting their input. My question is about the Fern Street crossing, which was on slide 9. We haven't talked about it in a while. I'm just curious if that is still just a placeholder or if there's actually movement towards actually working on the crossing. Thank you.
Yeah, this is actually pretty exciting. We're actually seeing movement. We're in regular communication with our engineering department, and the funding set aside is actually direction that we've gotten from city officials about the status of the Fern Street crossing. So this is in anticipation of the needs that are now have been expressed to us, that we can start some planning and, if needed, some acquisitions for that Fern Street crossing. So it's in line with where the city has been telling us they anticipate the Fern Street crossing going. And then once we get the property acquisition squared away, then we'll start going into the needs for any design needs that may be needed for that crossing.
President Warren.
Hi, I have a few questions. If we go to slide 6. Okay, when I look at the first 4 or 5 homes that are listed there, and it looks like approximately $10 million for preservation of 5 structures that I believe that you said we're going to go into housing stock?
Yes.
How do we finance that? For a $2 million restoration, how does someone afford that type of structure in the Northwest neighborhood?
So a part of the reason why the allocation is so high is because it is a historical preservation. One in particular that jumps out is the 610 Douglas property, which is a grouping of 6 shotgun-style homes. which we are currently working with Bender and Associates on the viability of those homes. Once we figure out the way forward with those, we will come back to the board before any before any dollar is spent on the projects. We'll come back to you with what the plans are, what the costs are, and we do need to figure out how we offload those houses and make them affordable. But I would imagine we've had incentives, they will be structured similar to the way we structured the commercial purchases for the sticks. We haven't quite finalized the details on how we would structure those purchases. But for instance, these are not single-family dwellings. As mentioned, the 610 Douglas is a plot of 6 homes. The Mickens-Moore property will be at least 2 homes. But again, they're historic preservation projects as well as hopeful housing initiatives. Chris, I don't know if you want to.
I'm right behind you. Thank you, Gina Baker, Project Manager, Historic Northwest. So the Mickens-Moore property has always been realized as possibly being another business opportunity for a bed and breakfast. The main house would be the actual receiving area, and the building that's behind it is a 10-unit apartment structure that was moved from downtown. Those rooms would be converted to actual rentable rooms. That's been on the books, unfortunately, for the last 4 or 5 years. We will come back and really look closer at that because there may be an opportunity to divide the house into 2 units and sell them fee simple. So that's the affordable housing context there. With respect to 610 Douglas Avenue, affectionately known as Hot Box, it sits right at the corner of 6th and Douglas Avenue. It's my hope to have those obviously restored. It's part of the historic preservation plan, and then also sell those fee simple as well. And I'm confident that between this agency and HCD, we will arrive at a way to make them truly affordable with first down payment assistance or something of that effect. Does that answer your question?
I have one minor important
Okay, go
note.
ahead, Chris.
Yes, especially on 610 Douglas. In order to maintain the density of the units on that lot, we had to preserve the structures. So if we don't save the structures, then we lose the density and we can only put 2 units. So it was a way to actually provide more affordable housing in the neighborhood.
You got a follow-up?
Several. I do believe that 610 will be great to maintain the designation and be able to offer those as starter homes or kind of studio homes, something that makes sense for people to be able to move into the community. It's just, when I look at this slide, those numbers together look very intimidating to me. And I'm just trying to understand the feasibility of moving forward in the way that we're moving forward with all of these.
May I have a follow-up? Thank you, Commissioner Warren. And as you've been in the community for many years, and you know what the sticks look like before it does today. There were a series of shotguns that were on the land. We tore them down and replicated them, and that was about a $4 million project. That was a bigger number. But we were able to pare the cost down so that it became affordable for small business. And because they look like little houses, people are constantly asking, can I buy it and move into it? So that's sort of our intention with the Hot Box project, also 610 Douglas Avenue. Any further questions?
Not on this. Thank you very much, Gina. Ms. Baker. When I look at WPB-CAT, and there are the asterisks there, are there bond dollars included in that?
Yes, $5 million.
5 million of those are bond dollars that have been
carried forward from, I think, maybe 2 years now.
So, yes, and Commissioner, that is something that will require further discussion by this board, and is intended to be a discussion item in the fall.
Okay, because it's been multiple years that it's carried forward.
That is correct.
Okay. Next question, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. For page 4, the business incentives that are offered, I believe that the slide said that there was about $1 million that was allocated for, and I guess I didn't write down which slide that is, where the numbers are broken out, the dollars that have been allocated for the business incentives.
So in the Historic Northwest, we have
Yes.
1.2 million allocated for business incentives but just redevelopment incentives. We expect that the lion's share of those will go towards business incentives, but they're also available for residents if they choose to take advantage. In the downtown core, we have 1.1 million allocated for business incentives, and as I said, they support existing agreements for job creation incentives, as well as a budget for new initiatives that may come specifically in the downtown area, but they come through economic development. And the CRA would allow for those funds to be used as long as the project is located within our boundary. And then in Nora, we have $6 million in redevelopment incentives. You will recall maybe 2 or 3 months ago, we came to you with an agreement with Nora. We are committed over a period of time to provide funding for the streetscape. The contribution for fiscal year 2024 is $5 million. And then we've allocated $1 million for business development incentives for new tenants coming in, tenant improvement opportunities once the buildings get up and renovated.
I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to that. But when I'm looking at the Northwest neighborhood and the $1 million that's allocated there, do we know how the funds have been used historically, like the last year? Did we use the balance of those funds? I know that we have a new business association that's been created. I'm hopeful that with that business association and the proper incentives that we'd be able to see more businesses moving into the community and utilizing those dollars for that recruitment and business support. So do we know how they were used historically?
So for the current year, we haven't earmarked any specific projects. In the previous year, you'll recall we allocated between 3 units so far, $44,000 each in tenant improvement initiatives in the sticks. We did a few paint, plan, and pave grants to residents in the neighborhood. Gina, am I missing anything? Am I forgetting anything for incentives?
Yes.
711 North Rosemary.
Yeah. So most of the incentive funds go to the facade and exterior improvement grant, which is roughly $75,000. It's an 80-20 match. There haven't been quite a lot of those in the last year. One, and who was it? I can't remember who was it. I think it was Darnell. Yeah, the 711 North Rosemary, which, by the way, the next time you're on Rosemary, notice the beautiful facade enhancement on that one. But there hasn't been a lot of inquiry, simply because there isn't a lot of space, and we're trying to change that.
Okay, we can talk further about that. The slide 10. The mayor's elementary education grant. Is there an opportunity for that to be bolder than $4,000, or is that, how do we arrive at that number, and what do we anticipate doing with it?
That is the number that I gave them. We gave $3,000 per elementary school in the city last year, the first time we'd use operating budget dollars to support our schools, and so we increased it by another 1,000 per school.
Okay.
So it's not 4,000 for the total. That's just the CRA's contribution for it. We have one school in the CRA district, and then the others will come out of the operating fund budget.
Thank you.
And what we've done last year, what we'll continue to do is send out an invitation to each of the schools to provide us with a proposal for how they would use the funds. The education committee looks at those and then makes recommendations, and once they are accepted, we'll give the schools checks.
Thank you, Mayor. That's tremendous. That's an increase of 33% over the previous year. I think that's excellent, and I'd like to know, perhaps moving forward, if we can look at the additional Title I schools in the community, and including those other Title I schools that may be, and this is, I guess, I'm not referring to CRA dollars, I'm referring to all of the other Title I schools in the city of West Palm Beach, being able to participate and receive these funds. So we'll table that. Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so now we will move on to Fund 107, which is the Northwood Pheasant City CRA. So again, we have just a general refresher on what the district looks like and the boundaries and where the districts are aligned. Highlights for this fund. Again, revenue is up $868,000 or 16% over 2023 actual amounts, and that's our estimated funding for the year. We have $3 million in carry forward money from the current fiscal year, $6.1 million in TIP funding, 3.9 from the city and $2.1 million from the county. The $51,000 in lease payments, that all represents the Lot 23 property, and then estimated investment earnings on CRA cash of $55,000 for the year. The usage of funds, again, we try to ensure that most of our spending goes into our projects, 70% between the project funding and innovative policing. 70% of the available funding goes into CRA initiatives. We have $1.8 million in debt service. And I just want to point out that that number includes potential interest expense on the line of credit that we are contemplating for property acquisitions along the Broadway corridor. So we put in the expense. We haven't put in the cash or the budget line for allocations, but we wanted to make sure that if that letter of credit is approved and we do have access to the funds, that we have allocated a means to support the loan. Innovative policing, $547,000. We are estimating a reserve of $474,000, and then operating expenses of $503,000. Again, that includes a new item this year, which represents 40% of an allocation for a new security director. So again, how we spend our money. Most of it goes into project funding, and the 64% represents project funding in the actual districts. And then which of those, just how do we allocate that 60% across the districts. Northwood Business Districts gets 42%. The Curry Corridor will get 23%. And Pleasant City will get 19%. And then the remainder is divided between the Broadway Corridor, the Industrial Park, and district-wide initiatives. So in the Northwood Business District, redevelopment incentives, we have 1,565,000, $1 million of which is for the anchor site, $500,000 of which is the spruce, and then $65,000 that will be available for businesses in the Northwood district. Neighborhood stabilization, the bulk of that represents the private security contract, $530,000 is the allocation for that. And then the remainder is for any planning initiatives, landscaping specifically in the Northwood area, and that's it. And then communications and engagement, we have $300,000 allocated for that. That includes activations along the inside the Northwood Business District. Again, we're replacing art, dine, and design. So now that we have Brianna on board, we look forward to some really exciting events coming out of the Northwood District. And then finally, we have $25,000 allocated for consulting services and community engagement on the Northwood Road extension. Within the Pleasant City District, these priorities were allocated based on concerns expressed by the residents of Pleasant City. They indicated that they wanted to see improvements in the street lighting and private security and cleanliness were big items for them as well. So that the neighborhood stabilization of $200,000 and the street lighting are express concerns of the neighborhood. We've increased the redevelopment incentives for new businesses coming into the area, but as well as opportunities for residents in the area that may want to do property improvement initiatives, facade grants, paint plan, pave, those types of things. Ongoing maintenance at Lot 23. Consulting services, again, that relates to the Blum Park initiative. And then finally, communications and engagement in Pleasant City of $15,000. Along the Curry Corridor, we have $500,000, almost $600,000 allocated for construction management and administration. That's the final allocation on the initial 10 more contract. And as we go to groundbreaking for Curry Park, that allocation is there for construction management. Planning in the Curry Corridor, we have an allocation for improvements to the Jill Daves Park. We have an allocation for the implementation of the placemaking plan in Curry Park, and then for grant management of the funds that we will get from Department of Economic Improvement, Economic Opportunity for the development of Curry Park. And then the redevelopment incentive represents our commitment to the Broward Block project, Parkland on the Park. Broadway, the 350 in neighborhood stabilization, that represents all landscaping and illegal dumping cleanup efforts, as well as $190,000 allocated for private security along the corridor. And then community engagements. One of the things that came out of our interaction with the CRAB as we discussed our 2024 budget was that they would like to see more activations on the northern end of the Broadway corridor in the 5800 block. And so we increased our allocations for engagements in that area. And hopefully we'll see some, not on the same scale, but we will see some activations along the Broadway corridor during the next fiscal year. Again, along the Broadway corridor, we are contemplating the line of credit. And if that does come through, again, we will come back to the board with that, and we will determine what that looks like, what any desired spend against that that line of credit will come back to the board for approval and discussion and approval. The industrial park, we've made available $30,000 for businesses that may want to take advantage of the incentive there, and we still do want to conduct a survey of the businesses in the area so that we know who's in there, first of all, and then how we could better serve the community going forward. And then finally, our district-wide initiatives. The neighborhood stabilization includes holiday lighting in the district. And again, most of that is for landscaping initiatives through the majority of the corridor, all across the corridor, actually. Again, we get a lot of calls for illegal dumping, maintenance of CRA properties, and just general cleanliness of the district as a whole. Consulting services, that represents the Northwood Pleasant City share of the marketing contract that will come on stream hopefully by the beginning of the fiscal year. Any property acquisition services that we may need, environmental assessments, topographical assessments, any surveys. And then we have an allocation for the seawall, $20,000, and again, $4,000 for the mayor's elementary education grant. And then finally, $12,500 for insurances against on CRA properties, and that again will represent Lot 23. And that'll bring us to the end of the presentation for the Northwood
Very
Pleasant
good,
City.
thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you. You mentioned the security director proposal. Where is that? How much money is coming out of the budget for that?
So we've allocated $200,000 for that position, and that would be all in. And that's not necessarily the spend, but that is the allocation.
Coming out of the north end budget?
No.
Okay.
60% of that comes out of the downtown city center budget, and 40% comes out of the Northwood Pleasant City budget. And for us, the lion's share of our private security spend is in the Northwood Pleasant City area.
Right. Follow-up question?
Yes.
Two more. The $190,000 for private security, is that consisting of 2 patrols or just 1?
I think what that represents is a continuation of the existing contract.
Okay.
I don't recall off the top of my head exactly what that is, but we took the half-year budget that was approved, and we increased it based on the notification of increased hourly rates, given their desire to provide an affordable wage to their employees, and then we spread it out for the entire budget year.
President Warren.
In regards to the security position, security director position, is there any way that we would be able to have the current administration in the police department as well as the administration and PSC absorb the responsibilities of that instead of creating a new position? Because it seems administrative, correct?
It is administrative in the sense of it's overseeing the PSC contract. It does require an expertise in order to properly know what type of services are going to need to be applied. And then also, because I recognize that PD is very busy in other parts of the city, it was envisioned to be an internal city position that could act as that liaison between the private security contract and PD. The original, the dollars amount were actually used, it was a net zero based on an actual reduction from some of the funds requested by PD from their request to the CRA. And because the security contract and the activities that PD and PSC are doing throughout the CRA districts were becoming extensive, this position was deemed as a best practice to move forward. So I feel like, Commissioner, that this is the best way to go in that it gives sort of an internal oversight that is not really in either PSC or the police department sort of frame of mind. It's sort of an independent perspective on private security services.
With security being so important to the quality of life throughout our city, I think it's important to have that expertise in-house, not only to oversee those contracts, but also to look at best practices from around the country as to how we as a city, we as a CRA, can improve our offering of public safety services to our constituents and make any recommendations to administration of the CRA, administration of the city. I think it's just important to have that expertise in-house that could be taking a strategic approach as opposed to a transactional approach to public safety.
Follow-up?
Yes.
When I look at the PSC contract, and there may have been a revision because I know that we added to it since the inception of it, but I believe that that was part of why we went to one security company versus multiple security companies, correct, was to have one company and one area of leadership that would work directly with the city and the police department in order to ensure that we were improving safety.
Well, that's true, but they're providing the services. What we need is more of a strategic approach. So having someone in-house who, they're not on the streets providing the services, but what they're doing is overseeing the implementation of that contract, as well as the relationships between PSC and the police department, and also looking out over the landscape of best practices and then making recommendations so that we can continue to improve. This position is not providing the services. This position is providing the advice, counsel, and strategic, and helping us develop a strategic direction to how we move forward with public safety.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Because we have one more budget to go through. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
So, Mayor, if I may, now is because the CRA and the DDA are very much, we coordinate and
Is this still part of 7.2?
I'm sorry, what?
Is the presentation that Raphael's going to give, that's still part of item 7.2, correct?
It is, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you. Go ahead, Raphael.
Good evening. Rafael Clemente, Executive Director, Downtown Development Authority. And I do see that we are close to time, so I'll be as efficient as I can on this. Just a quick preview of why we do what we do as a special district within your CRA. We're obviously governed by State Department of Revenue rules. We're governed by Chapter 163, which is the state's statute on CRAs and how we interact with the CRA as a taxing entity within it. And then, of course, our interlocal agreement with the city and the CRA, which the original version of that started in 2007. We'll be renewing that coming up next year, 2024. Our budget process, just a quick timeline. We're here today with this presentation. We're going to make any adjustments to this. Comes back to the DDA board yet again. We finalize all that in September with our budget hearings, just like you guys do. And then we wrap up our fiscal year and start our audit process. The reason I'm showing Q1 of the next fiscal year is because of our relationship with the CRA. We're required to pay our TIF payment before we get that injection of dollars from the CRA. So we've often been questioned on our carry forward number, et cetera. This is why, because we don't start to get tax money in until halfway or almost the end of our first quarter of our fiscal year. And we still have to write that check to you guys before we are able to fully fund our budget. So it is a bit of a balance in what we carry forward and what we can actually spend. But we're here now in August of the current year. We're going to burn a significant amount of money between now and when we still have to write over $3 million check to you. So this is just how we have to work. We've actually looked at this. We've talked to the state, the property appraiser, the tax collector. It is what it is. We've even met with Ms. Rothenberg. It is just what we have to do by law. Revenue and millage, projected increase, like everyone in Palm Beach County, a significant increase in our revenues. 2024 estimated taxable value of the district. And I apologize, I should include a map of the DDA boundary like you all have for the CRA districts. I didn't do that. I do apologize. Estimated taxable value is $3.6 billion for the entire DDA district. 63 million of that is new construction. A quick history in our millage rate. From our founding in 67 to 1993, we were at 1 mil. In 1993, the district voted by referendum to double that millage to 2 for specific outcomes. 2007, we reduced it to 1, and that was when we started our interlocal. That's what that asterisk is there to remind me to say that. And then in 2022, we reduced it to 0.98, of course, following the lead of the city. And yet again this year, we intend to reduce our millage again to 0.97. At a 0.98 budget, I won't linger here because we're not there, but just for showing the number, the reduction is about a $70,000 decrease. A chunk of that came out of our reserves. We wanted to put a little more in there, trying to get to 10%. We reduced that. We also reduced marketing and reduced public realm a little bit. If there's any specific questions on that, I'm happy to go into them. Otherwise, I'll continue on. Got a thumbs up, or was that a question? Good, okay, thank you. Quick comparison, current fiscal year in gray, proposed budget for the coming fiscal year in green. Tax revenues are up, carry forwards are down. If you all, revenues up about 750,000, carry forwards are down just shy of $1 million. If you all remember, we had a big carry forward through COVID. A lot of things that we were doing and funding, we stopped. That money carried. We have spent it down to what is pretty much typical proportionately for our annual budget. Considerations, I won't linger here, but fixed route, we're contributing $500,000 to that. On-demand service, which by the way, in July, we moved 17,000 people, I think our greatest ridership on the on-demand in the downtown area. On-demand is about $325,000 a year. And then the Mobility Coalition, which thank you for the allocation of that. We have hired our first employee, a gentleman named Bernard. He is starting in earnest and will be going about the business of getting our largest employment generators in the downtown area on board with mode shift. I'm excited to come back to you all with a report on that, but this is working. And it's generating not just our investment as public sector partners, but it's generating a lot of private sector investment. So I think we're onto something good. Some changes to the interlocal, and one of those is homeless outreach. After additional discussion with your staff, Jennifer Ferriol specifically, we're going to talk more about this. This program it was an idea on how we could do things differently. As I spoke with all of you one-on-one, I did indicate this was a proposal that we needed to build. So we're gonna sit down, work on this, probably bring it back to my board in September, and then come back to you. So what I'm going to ask is, stay tuned. More to come. Our work plan, that's that guiding document. It is basically the agreement that is the scope of work for the interlocal between the DDA, the CRA, and the city. As I mentioned, it comes up for renewal next year, but we're going to start the process of community discussions in October of this year with a meeting at the Kravis Center. You'll all get an invite to that, obviously, and there will be a lot of focus group work and obviously dialogue with all of you. So I'm getting close on time, but this is an important point I wanted to make. I think probably every one of you have learned some psychology, and you've seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs for us as human beings. At the base of the pyramid are the things we must have. At the tip of the pyramid are the things we'd love to have. We think about downtown in the same way. This is driven by not just our own work as professionals, but what we hear from our community loud and clear. Safe and clean is the base of that pyramid. Accessibility, social vibrancy, and special or unique. And then we always ask the question, can we reach that pinnacle of self-actualization as a place? Can we be so special, so charming, that people just want to stay? And we built our budget that way. If we were to flip this upside down and prioritize it, this is what we hear from residents. We want clean, safe, well-maintained, all the way down to that tippy top thing of vibrancy and charm. Can we do that? Can we help that happen with the work that we do as a special district? So in our work plan, these are the 4 areas. You all know them. Physical environment, residential quality of life, business development, and marketing. And we always ask the question of what is over and above. That changes every year. That line has never been static. Sometimes there's things that city departments or city leadership or the DDA board or the community says, can you pick up this year? This past year it was, can we allocate money to fix sidewalks? Next year it's going to be, can we help design a turnout so trucks don't park on Olive Avenue? Like, this is always sort of in flux, and we have worked harder and harder every year to better define that, because we understand our best role is going up that pyramid and working on those things that the community asks us for. But we also realize that if we are missing on specific needs, then we need to help cover them. So in the physical environment area of our budget, this is the foundation of our services. This is the base of the pyramid. It's 25% of our budget. And again, current year in gray, coming year in green. The big change you see here is public space enhancements. That's basically those capital projects. We reduced that by $100,000 and put that money elsewhere, primarily in cleaning. Because as downtown gets busier, there's more mess to clean up. As your old public works director used to say, the sanitation business is always picking up. That's a bad joke, but it stuck with me. But we are increasingly being asked by the community, business and residents, to do more in this area, so we are doing more. The $75,000 remaining in that area, in that line, will most certainly be allocated to design of a loading zone and kiss and ride spot on Olive to help take pressure off of Olive Avenue. Otherwise, this budget stays pretty much the same. There's not a lot of change here. Neighborhood services, these are the ambassador program, transportation, including on-demand and fixed route, public space and community programs, homeless outreach, another 25% of our budget. The big ones here are the ambassadors and transportation. This item here of placemaking programs and the Community Compassion Fund, That's that change that I mentioned for the homeless outreach, and I'll stay with my TBD. We're going to bring that back to you. That number may change after more conversation, but we're very close there. Placemaking programs, that's things like the Chess Park, K Bacano, Let's Vibe. We'd like to do more of that. We'd specifically like to do more of that in areas that are underactivated and are about to become busy parts of our district. The Clear Lake
Raphael, I'm
District.
sorry, I've got to cut you off,
Okay.
because I've got a card here. I want to make sure I get to the card. Do any questions of Raphael before you can distribute this deck
Yes,
to the
sir.
commissioners, please?
I can distribute and I can do additional one-on-one if that's
All right,
desired.
thank you. All right, we have one card, Mr. Cleveland, Michael Cleveland.
Good evening, Board. Chairman, thank you very much. Michael Cleveland, West Palm Beach. Sometime after the CRA, Pleasant City's Northwood CRA was established, the entire community of Pleasant City was acquired as a CRA, part of the CRA district. I think it's time that Pleasant City be treated fairly in this distribution of funding from TIF monies, and as well as security that you have in the area. If you have security on Broadway and Norwood Road, certainly that security should be patrolling through Pleasant City. The entire community of Pleasant City is part of Norwood CRA. But my main reason for standing before you this afternoon as regards to CRA is some time ago during my tenure on the board, there was $60,000 set aside for street improvements on Spruce Avenue. I've mentioned it several times. No one has brought forth what happened to those $60,000. I certainly would like to find out what happened to it. Perhaps there may be an audit requested to find out what happened to it, but as far as I know, it wasn't spent for the purpose it was so true designated for. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rue, can you check into that historical $60,000?
Yes, Mayor.
And Mr. Rue, let me publicly apologize. You suggested we should start at 3 o'clock. I said no, and you were right, and I was wrong. So I apologize for that. Raphael, I'm sorry again that we had to kind of rush you through, but certainly share that information with us. Anything for the good of the body? Okay. This meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene as the City Commission at 5 p.m. Thank you.